Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's not just me, we've got my good friend Toby here as well. And if you've watched the channel before, you've seen that Toby has previously appeared in a couple of videos. And today we're going to be doing just a slightly longer format of video, talking about everything in the Premier League. And the first thing that we have to talk about is Manchester United. And Toby, Erik Ten Hag has been sacked as Manchester United manager, and things have been progressing very, very quickly. It now seems that Ruben Amorim is going to be the new Manchester United manager, and fingers crossed nothing changes between the time that this episode is recorded and by the time I get it out. So could I just get your initial reactions on the sacking of Erik Ten Hag?
I mean, yeah, you're just saying in terms of the speed of things, how they're happening and changes. I mean, the amount of changes we've had to do to notes and things in the last day or so with the news that's coming out doesn't feel like too much of a shock, I don't think, given the result on the weekend, especially the loss to West Ham, who themselves are not in good form and have now leapfrogged Man United in the table up to 13th, and Man United sitting in 14th place. Only 11 points after 9 games, which is the second worst season start post Sir Alex Ferguson. The worst of which actually was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in 1920, who actually kept his job for the remainder of the season. So no such luck for Ten Hag this time. And yeah, hasn't been a good start. And I think this is INEOS trying to change things now in hopes of sort of recovering the rest of the season. Because I think if things were carrying on in the form that they were, then who knows where United would end up, because it's not been looking good, has it?
No, it really hasn't. And I'll be honest, I put out my immediate reaction, to Erik Ten Hag getting fired. And I did say in that I thought the timing, while I expected it, I thought it was inevitable. I thought it was a little bit surprising because it did feel like, when mentally you make the decision and when you actually impact it are two different things. So I thought after Spurs that, okay, this is it. Erik Ten Hag does not have a future Man United manager, and it's just about when. I'm surprised they sacked him after West Ham because of the fact that, the Jarrod Bowen late goal was a penalty, was a very dodgy decision, which I don't think was a penalty. And you did have that prior to the Liverpool-Arsenal game, a big game, which dominated a lot of the headlines from the weekend. So maybe you could have swept the defeat under the rug, and maybe the mainstream media doesn't pick up on it too much. And the fact that, you still got a couple more games in the Premier League, and I think a cup competition in the League Cup and a Europa League game as well. So I was a bit surprised they did it now. Maybe didn't wait till November, but they've been proactive. They've made the decision. And are you surprised by the timing at all, or do you think it's fair enough?
I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but I do always see it as a bit of a gamble replacing the manager in the middle of the season. And I think it's going to be difficult for the manager who does come in to not have that pre-season, not be able to have a transfer window, and have to really try and get a quick fix, I think, to make a statement, especially given the sort of atmosphere at Old Trafford at the moment. It does feel like they need a good boost and some good results. And when a manager's coming in and doesn't have that prep, it does make things a lot more difficult. But I think, as you said, they're trying to be proactive, and I don't think there really would have been an opportunity to give Ten Hag the rest of the season.
No, it definitely wasn't. It did seem untenable, really. I mean, I think when you think about the football, the style of play, if there even was one, some of the interviews, the constant talking about the League Cup and the FA Cup that he's won rather than focusing on the here and now, it did seem like it was all coming to an end. And yeah, it has come to an end. And they announced immediately in the statement that Ruud van Nistelrooy would be taking the interim managerial position. And it was one where I think it was the worst kept secret in football. I think if you had a bingo card of what you thought was going to happen this season, and it was Erik Ten Hag to get sacked and Ruud van Nistelrooy to take charge at some point, I think it was pretty obvious why if they didn't think that maybe that Ten Hag wasn't the right man after their long summer approach, why they decided to not just give Ruud or someone else the managerial position in the summer. Bit of a surprise, but yeah, Ruud van Nistelrooy, even though it does seem like it's already going to be Ruben Amorim, what are your thoughts on it? Because it does seem like you do have someone just on Erik Ten Hag's shoulder, like a bit of a grim reaper, part of the coaching staff. Maybe is he at fault at all for the form of this season, or is it all down to Ten Hag? And yeah, it's just a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a strange one, and I know before sort of the Amorim news came out that he was the sort of bookies' favourites to be the next permanent manager, which I think was really surprising given he's only had one professional season as a manager, as the first team manager. So yeah, I think given the timing of the sacking and everything, I think maybe this was United knew Amorim was available, was open to the job, because I think the speed at which things progressed, I don't think they would have sacked Ten Hag this quickly and now without having a decent replacement, I think, lined up. I don't think they would have ever considered Van Nistelrooy as a long-term replacement, as a permanent replacement. I think he'll be a good interim and will get the job done until Amorim comes in, however quickly that may be as well, because it seems like things are moving quickly, and in my opinion, I think we're probably lined up, I think, for how quickly things have moved. What do you reckon? Do you think this is super quick movement from United, or that Amorim was already lined up?
I think he must have been with how quickly everything's been going. It was rumoured they had talks in the October International about his availability and would he be keen to take the job. If that's coming out now just to maybe pander to United fans because of the fact that it does look like it's happening now, I'm not quite sure. But I would say that, we saw what happened the last time Man United had an interim manager. It was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and he did end up, United were delaying appointing a new manager. They did take a little bit of time. And so Ole got off to a fantastic start. Obviously, that night against PSG in Paris, it did mean that, everyone did want Ole to get the job. So I think with their fixtures between now and the November International being quite easy on paper, apart from that Chelsea one on the weekend, it did seem like, if we don't hire someone immediately, then fans could potentially get behind the idea of Ruud van Nistelrooy, and then they've got the fan base split maybe about the new manager, whoever that were to be, because there was no clear standout candidate. But I have to say that, I am liking the fact that INEOS have been decisive, sacked Ten Hag, put in an interim, maybe just for the Leicester game in the League Cup on Wednesday night. And then they've gone, we want someone, we know who we want, and we're going to go out and get it. And the fact that it's happened all in the space of roughly 24 hours, I think it's quite exciting, and it bucks the trend of what we've seen from previously from this Man United ownership. So I think it's all positive, really. I think that's fair to say, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, I hope more so that this is more of a long-term appointment for Manchester United. I mean, he's a young manager. He has had a good number of seasons at Sporting now. It's not like he's one of these overnight success managers who's had one good season and they've thought, we'll snap him up quickly. I mean, Amorim's had, I think he's on his 5th season now at Sporting, all been pretty decent, bar one in 22-23 was a little bit disappointing. But yeah, I think it's a really good appointment. And as you said, I think the interest that was built from other large clubs like City, like Chelsea, all keeping an eye on Amorim, that Man United have thought, we're going to get our man, we're going to get him now. And obviously results dependent. I think this feels like more of a long-term managerial appointment, although maybe we were saying the same when Ten Hag first joined.
Yeah, I do think we probably were saying the same thing when Ten Hag joined. I think with Amorim, though, I just feel like there's a bit more excitement around him. I don't know why. I can't really quantify it or put my finger on it. It does seem very similar to Ten Hag, I'll be honest. But I don't know why I feel differently about it. Maybe because there were a lot of other top clubs being linked with him. Like I said, Man City, Liverpool, West Ham, Chelsea. We're all looking at him. But, it has to be fair to say none of them got it over the line. None of them decided to go with Amorim. But I do think that this is someone who took a Sporting side who didn't have large success, especially in terms of the league title, for I think it was something like 19 years, and then he finally did do it in his first 4 seasons. So I think he has that approach of coming into a side, being ruthless, knowing what he wants, and going, right, this is what we need to do to be successful, and then doing it. And I think that is something that Man United really, really need, because I suppose if you were to take over the Liverpool job, which he was linked to, and I was heavily looking into him at the time, he wanted to play his 3-4-3 kind of system, and he was set in his way. He wasn't willing to change that. And I think for Liverpool, they wanted someone to pick up the team from where they left off. And I think you can see it with the lack of transfer activity that they had. But with Man United, there needs to be large sweeping change. And it does seem like he has the capacity to do that. He did it with Sporting. Can he do it in Man United? It's a much bigger club with a lot more eyeballs on it. But it's someone who has previously done it. So I think this is a good appointment. I look at other candidates out there and I think, is he one of the best of the managerials out there? I think so, yeah. Out of everyone who was available and not at the current club, you got Xavi and you got a couple of others. But yeah, I think this one is the most exciting out of all the ones that Man United could have gone for.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a really good point you said in terms of like style of play and tactics. I think Man United probably do need that shift, and I think they do need someone who is going to bring in a really, really clear identity. And there is going to be that change, I think, away from the last 3 or 4 years where it hasn't really felt like there's much of a tactical style, doesn't really feel like there's much of an ethos, much of a style of play sort of behind the scenes that I think is built up through an academy, through the 21s, which you see at a lot of clubs that all of the squads are playing the same way. And I think with Amorim's stubbornness, I guess, to play in that style, I think is actually a really good thing and will be a big positive for United. And they may have some quick success, some new manager bounce, but I think overall the style of play is going to take a little bit of time to build, and I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing at all. And with Amorim, like you said, in his first full season, got the league title, first in 19 years. They actually had a national record in that season to go 32 games unbeaten. And then second season, finished second in the league, third season finished fourth in the league. And I can imagine in and around that time, potentially some question marks. Maybe that first season was a bit of a fluke. But then his fourth season, the next season, he wins the league. Now into this season, they've won their first 9 games on the trot. 2 wins and a draw in the Champions League out of 3 games as well. And I think it just shows that he is a manager with a really, really good style of play and a really clear tactics that he wants to bring, but can also adapt to those things when they're not working, like they did in that season where they finished fourth outside of the Champions League places. Adapted some things, made some really strong signings like Viktor Gyökeres, brought them back up to another league title. So all good signs, I think, from Amorim's work so far, and hopefully he's able to bring a good change and bring that 3-4-3 into United, and it'll be really interesting to see how he does it and who is playing where.
Oh, I tell you what, mate. Just listening to you talk there and thinking about what I was saying as well, it does feel very much like everything that we said when Ten Hag got appointed a Man United manager. But I think the only difference is and it's maybe I'm clutching at straws here, is because Man United haven't been great for so long. Yes, they've had the occasional trophy. Yes, they've had a season where they finished second here or there, but I think you have to be excited when a new manager comes in. If you're not excited when a new manager comes in, then, what's the point of being a fan, So I think if you are a Man United fan, you're thinking, oh my God, we're just saying the same thing we said about Ten Hag. I think, you have that maybe in the back of your mind. Maybe you've got that, oh, is it just another one, another same, or is the trend going to repeat itself? But I think you have to be excited. And I think one big difference that I think we can already tell from Amorim compared to Ten Hag is in terms of his communication. I think he's a lot better in terms of communicating than Ten Hag is. I was quite surprised actually how bad Ten Hag in terms of communicating was. I thought initially his ruthlessness was quite a good thing and the way he was sharp and blunt, but actually listening to him over a period of time, he has become a little bit jarring, I think it's fair to say. And I think constantly talking about the past and not talking about the present, and also not addressing things in a good way. Like he doesn't say anything in his press conferences that gets you to latch onto anything and go, oh, that was funny. Oh, that's an interesting point. It is just a bit dry and bland. And I think Amorim, from what I've seen in some interviews at Sporting, he is very charismatic. He has got other fans of other teams in the league to envy Sporting and envy him, because they're like, oh, we wish we could have him as our manager. And I think that's something that in the Premier League, where there is so much media, I mean, we probably produce more pundits than we do coaches in terms of ex-players. So getting a manager who can convey his messages well in terms of both players and the media will buy him a lot of time. And I think that's something that Erik Ten Hag just failed at, really.
And I think especially in communication with the squad and the players and the tactics, like you said with Ten Hag, there really didn't feel like there was a distinguished style of play at times. You could see what was trying to be done, I think, in terms of the way that they were building up and the signings they were making. Like, obviously Onana, I think, was a big part of their build-up in holding that ball and then waiting for the press to come in and getting it into that mid-third quickly. But I just think there was a lack of identity delivered into the players there. And like you said, I think a big part of that is going to be down to that communication. And if Amorim is a step up from that, that is what United would need at the moment. And I think a few of the other candidates that were sort of named in terms of Xavi and sort of Graham Potter, again, I think they'd be good appointments, but again, I don't think there's that excitement, and I think that's what United fans as well will need is that excitement and is that attachment to a manager that hasn't really been there for a while now.
Yeah, someone who they can say is like their own. It's like the way that Jurgen Klopp came from Germany and came to Liverpool, Pep Guardiola with Man City. You really don't. I know, obviously, Amorim is well known in the football community. If you watch football and if you engage, then I think you will know of Ruben Amorim. You will know he's been linked to other top clubs. But I think there is always that a bit more excitement when it's someone who's making a step up, but someone also who has had success where they have been. It's like, okay, he's our guy now. And I think that's one of the issues that you probably had with Thomas Frank or Marcus Silva or maybe even a Antonio Raiola at Bournemouth, where teams lower down, you've watched their teams, you've listened to their interviews, you know what they're about, and so there's not as much excitement. There's not people like us going around like, right, we need to watch as much of Sporting as we can. We need to look at his interviews. We need to see how his team played. What has he done? And so I think there is that excitement of a foreign manager coming in and going, right, what's he going to do in Man United? And it does seem like he's going to play his 3-4-3, and it does seem like that he's pretty set in his ways. But I do think that his Man United squad is potentially pretty well set to play this 3-4-3. I think there are a couple of players who could benefit. I think there are a couple who are going to maybe struggle to get into it. But should we maybe talk about it? Should we maybe talk about the players that we think will thrive and some players who we think will maybe fall by the wayside in Ruben Amorim's 3-4-3 if he were to become Man United manager? And so, yeah, let me just write it down here. So goalkeeper, it's got to be Onana, doesn't it?
Yeah, Onana, I think he's been incredibly underrated since he's come in. I think those first few months where he was making mistakes, didn't look confident, was losing the ball, and we didn't really see that amazing distribution that he has as well. I think he has actually been really, really good. And just looking at some of the stats as well, Man United conceded 11 goals. Their expected goals against is actually 17.5, which is the biggest gap in any team in the Prem this season. And yeah, part of that is maybe other teams not finishing their chances, but I think a large part of that, as we saw last season, was Andre Onana saving them a lot of times and producing some amazing saves. And yeah, he will 100% be comfortably their goalkeeper still.
Yeah, I have seen some criticism for him this season, and I think sometimes he doesn't look like the best shot stopper in the world, but he does get the job done. And I do often think that, it's the ghost of David De Gea that's haunting him more than what he's actually doing on the pitch. If you just take him, what he's doing on the pitch, I think he's doing a phenomenal job. And yeah, he started off on a rough patch, and the Champions League last season was largely down to him and the fact that they didn't qualify from that group stage. But I think, yeah, Andre Onana is, he is Man United's number one. And I think Amorim coming in, I think he will be very happy with the fact that he's a ball-playing goalkeeper, and those passes between him and the defenders, but also the long ball and the ability to maybe hit a central striker and to mix things up. I think, Onana's got everything, and I think, yeah, Amorim will absolutely love him.
Yeah, I was just gonna touch on that as well. Saying those long balls. Obviously, when he was Inter were playing a 5-back, 3-back with wing backs, and a large part of the way Inter Milan used to play was those long balls out to those wing backs that really stretches the play. Wing backs bringing it down and then passing it centrally, and it just creates so much space, which, yeah, I think is something we'll definitely see with Amorim too.
Yeah, and his leadership as well. I do think that from the interviews I've seen of Onana, I think he does get slightly underrated. He's got the right mentality to be a Man United player. I just don't think he's an issue. I think when the team aren't doing well, you can maybe hyper-focus on everything that's bad, and sometimes issues that aren't issues become issues, if that kind of makes sense. And so, yeah, I think for me, Onana is perfectly fine in goal. In terms of the back three then, he does seem to like, mobile central defenders who are, and especially the right and left ones, who are able to defend space and who are all very good on the ball. Man United do actually have 6 central defenders on their books. So they've got Johnny Evans, Harry Maguire, Victor Lindelof, Lisandro Martinez, Lenny Yoro, and also Mateus de Ligt, who they did sign this summer. Out of those 6, which ones do you... can you pigeonhole some as right centre-back, central and left for me, Toby?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Lisandro Martinez, I think he's a perfect left-sided centre-back. He's played left-back in his career. He's obviously now transitioned to centre-back. I think he's the perfect player that you want in that left centre-back role. I mean, if you had to pick an ideal three, it would be Martinez, De Ligt, and Lenny Yoro, which I think going across in that order is pretty decent. It's pretty decent. It's just obviously with injuries at the moment, the backups of Maguire, Evans, and Lindelof, not ideal, really.
Yeah, and also with Evans, Maguire, and Lindelof, I think they will be used between now and the end of the season, and they have to be really, because you can't really rely on any Man United player to stay fit for a period of time. And so I do think they will be used. I think while Euro is out, and I do think Euro has a fantastic future. I think he's a phenomenal player, and I think Man United are very lucky to have him. And I think if Amorim were to come in, him at right centre back, defending those wide spaces will be perfect. But while he's not available, I do fancy Victor Lindelof, as a player who's played centre back, right centre back, left centre back, left back, right back. He's played literally across the entire back line. And I do look at him more so than maybe a Johnny Evans and a Harry Maguire as someone who is comfortable out there wide. And it's not like it's a back three who are close together in possession. It's a back three who are really far wide and away from each other in possession. So he is sometimes going to be almost at a right back position, and so he's got to be comfortable out there. And I think when a new manager comes in, you get the most buy-in from the players and the fans is immediately, and I think it's worth maybe just playing Victor Lindelof for now. It obviously is not going to be a long-term thing. I think Lenny Yoro probably will be in the back three long-term, but I don't know. I just fancy Victor Lindelof at right centre back. Is that crazy?
No, not at all. I think he would be definitely a good backup at least, and I think he'll probably play there at the moment. I don't think that's crazy at all. I think that's a good shout, and I even think Maguire potentially as a left-sided centre back in a three. We've seen him do it for England for a number of years. I think he has lost a lot of pace recently though, so may struggle. But yeah, I mean Lindelof definitely out of any position he would suit that right side in the back three pretty well.
Yeah, and I suppose I mean you can play Evans as the central defender if you want. So if we were to say, you're a right centre back, De Ligt central defender, and then Martinez left centre back.
Or even potentially even Yoro in the middle as well, because he's pretty tall, isn't he? I think he's quite a bit taller than De Ligt, which may make a difference. But yeah, those three, when they're all fit, I think that is a really nice back three actually.
Yeah. And then with Lindelof, Maguire, and Evans as backup, which I think they can do jobs as well. And Man United do have 4 fullbacks. Not all 4 of them fit because it's Man United and their injury record actually is really, really bad. And that's something that Amorim will have to sort out if he can come in. Dalot, Mazraoui. Is it as simple as they're both now going from right backs to right wing backs? Is it that simple?
I actually think at the moment it's going to be Mazraoui right wing back, Dalot left wing back. I think I'm not sure about Dalot as a wing back, if I'm being honest. When we first sort of started discussing this squad, Dalot is the one player that I think may not struggle, but I think will lose a lot of what he's really good at, and that is inverting and coming inside and driving forward centrally, which I think is a lot easier to have from a traditional fullback than it is a wing back. With a wing back and the way Amorim's going to be playing his front three, the front three are going to be fairly narrow in comparison, and the wing backs are going to be the one providing the width. And Dalot can do that, and I think he can do a good job there, but I think it loses a lot of what he's been really good at recently, and he has been a bit of a bright spark in that United side. So I actually think on that left side, I think would enable him to drive inside a little bit more than maybe on that right side. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I don't really. I think Amorim would play Dalot left wing back, and then that would be. I think that's the logical thing to do straight away. But I think what we've seen Dalot do, like you said, is him invert, but I think like you said, he would clog up the space and maybe he doesn't see. Yeah, you can't have him invert. You got to tell him stay out wide and just stay there and don't come inside. You have to keep the width. And I think also maybe potentially you'd want a natural left-footed player out there as well. I think maybe to play the ball first time, because if they're constantly, like we saw with Kieran Trippier with England, if they're constantly cutting in on the right-hand side, the forward players in the box and making a run, then they have to pull back and readjust and make the run again. It just slows everything down a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, and also just the game against West Ham, Dallas missed effectively an open goal. As a Premier League footballer, you have to be scoring that, and it's okay if you miss that if you're a Sunday League player, but as a Premier League footballer, you have to be scoring that. So the wing backs are going to be getting into goal scoring positions as well. Do I trust Dallo? Do I trust Mazraoui in there? I'm not quite sure. I think, let's say in a hypothetical world, everyone is fit. I think that Dallo and Mazraoui, I'm not sure who I prefer, if I'm being honest. I don't want either of them left wing back. That I know for sure.
Yeah, I think long term, yeah, Dallo Mazraoui will be those right wing backs. And I think maybe if it was Shaw 3 or 4 years ago, he would be perfect in that left wing back role. And when he's been bobbing forward, looked really good. I'm not sure about him now, and obviously big fitness issues. And I think that left wing back will be someone that they'll need to sign, I think, in the summer. Especially with Malacia as well, obviously being the other option, who has struggled with fitness almost his entire Man United career. So yeah, for now, I guess Dallo left wing back, Mazraoui right wing back, but eventually, yeah, as you say, I completely agree. I think both will be that right wing back.
Yeah, I think Amorim has got options at right wing back. I think, yeah, I'm just gonna say Mazraoui for now. I think because maybe he's just a little bit better on the ball than maybe Dallo, and so initially he can do it. But I think maybe Dallo, for his physicality, maybe can get up and down the pitch a bit more. Who knows? But yeah, left wing back is a massive issue. I think Luke Shaw could have done the job really, really well. But I think, like you said, with his injury issues, I actually fancy him maybe not this season. I think next season, when Amorim has got a few players in, maybe as like a option as left centre back along with Lisandro Martinez. I think someone, because you can't rely on Shaw to be fit week in, week out. Maybe having him as a backup, and then also maybe having be maybe second or third choice left wing back. I think that could be something that really works. And then you also have that left-footed left centre back to carry on there as well. And I think that I don't think Malacia really fits in anywhere, if I'm being honest, in this Amorim side.
Yeah, I'm not too convinced, to be honest. I think he's barely played as well, so yeah, not going to be any of the first name in the squad for sure. And then centrally in the midfield, again, is it as simple as Mainu and... Oh, actually, it's not simple now I've thought about it. Is it Mainu and Ugarte, or is it Mainu and Hernandez and he gets pushed back?
I think it's, for me, I think it is simple. I think it is Manu Ugarte and it is Kobe Mainu when they are fit. And I think for me, that works really, really well. I mean, because obviously Ugarte, best form, when he had his best, when he got his move to PSG, it was at Sporting with Ruben Amorim. And so I think, yeah, for me, I think it is very much Ugarte and Kobe Mainu. I think maybe the backups, you maybe have to question. I think maybe Casemiro with his legs, can he do the job if Ugarte is going to be there on his own in like a 3-1-6 at times? I do worry about that. But I think, does Kobe Mainu as well have the legs to bomb up forward, get back as well? He does seem to not have much pace to his game, and so his positioning is going to be so important. But yeah, I think if everyone's fit with this current set of players, I think it is Ugarte and Mainu. And for me, I think it is Bruno Fernandes a bit further forward as well. Is that your preference as well, Fernandes further forward?
Yeah, I think so. I think Hernandez was playing pretty far forward for obviously Sporting before. Alma, I don't think was there at the time, but the way that Sporting play at the moment, Pedro Goncalves on the left wing, he's sort of a in between a hybrid of a winger and a 10, and I think Hernandez can fill that role on the left. Suits him pretty well, cutting in on his right foot. I think it would give the left wing back, if they can get someone who's going to be really high and almost act as that winger, and Hernandez just sort of cutting inside a little bit. Some nice combinations there. So yeah, I think Hernandez on the left could certainly work. And then, unfortunately, that only really means there's only one other winger position, which I guess Garnacho and Rashford would be the options for that one.
I'll tell you what, I don't think Amorim's going to be able to fit everyone in this side unless he plays one of the wingers maybe as left wing back. And Oh my god, am I going? He could maybe play Anthony left wing back. I mean,
Yeah, I can't see it.
no, I'm just going to chuck that out there as an option. I think maybe a better one probably is Garnacho left wing back. I mean, as someone who can keep the width and can put a decent ball in on his left foot, and that means then you only really have Rashford and Ahmad as an options on the right number 10 position. Because I can, because yeah, I know we're drifting in and out between who's fit and who's not fit. If everyone's fit, maybe you do have Shaw left wing back. But if everyone's fit, maybe he does want his wing backs to be like actual wingers. So
Yeah.
you could have maybe Garnacho left wing back, Bruno Fernandes like right attacking midfielder in that number 10 position in that half space. And then you could have, then it's between Rashford and Diallo, isn't it? And I don't know, that's a tough one. I don't know who you go for there.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't been too convinced by Rashford over the last couple of seasons. I think he's just really dropped off, and I don't know. I think they need to transition away from Rashford potentially. I think Garnacho and Diallo look like much brighter sparks, and I think could work really well in the system sitting behind the striker. But again, maybe Rashford being a little bit more central but not being the striker could be good for him, and we could see a return to form, because on his form he is Man United's best attacker. It's just we haven't seen that form for far too long really. So for me, he's not urgent to get into that starting lineup, and I definitely don't think he'll be there up front as well, because I think both Højlund and Xerxes are much better options, especially in a system like this where the striker is really the main presser and is almost really the only presser, the one who's initiating all the moves, someone who's strong, physical, can bring others into play, and can also really sit in the box. And I think Højlund would be a really good option for that, and Xerxes as well is able to do that job. So who would you pick out those two if you had to pick one to be that starting number 9 for United at the moment?
So without even debating it, I just wrote Højlund straight away. I did think that you were. I do like Xerxes as well. I think his game though, when it comes to Amorim, I think Højlund is perfect. I mean, you think about Victor Gyökeres, had a good time at Coventry, but Amorim really made him explode. And I do think that in terms of the pace, being on the last line of defence, his movement left and right, I think his movement is actually something that's very underrated. And I think with Joshua Xerxes, I think he will end up becoming a bit more of a backup to Højlund. And I can maybe even see him maybe dropping into the positions just behind the striker, either right or the left.
Yep.
Also think about a player we haven't talked about as well is Mason Mount. I think as a backup to maybe Fernandes on that left attacking midfield. But I also think maybe as a position at the right attacking midfield or even centrally in the 2, I think Mason Mount, if fit, he's got the quality and he can find himself into the side. I think his intelligence is very underrated. I think his passing, I really like Mason Mount, and I think there is a player there who can fit into a Ruben Amorim side with Man United. So yeah, I wouldn't rule out Mason Mount either. They do have a lot of players and they have a lot of options, and that's the best part about him coming in now, is because he has to work with the players he has, and so he's got from now to January to maybe try and figure out what he thinks his best 11 is, and then from there figure out which players can and can't fit into the system.
Yeah, and I guess that's also another sort of exciting part of it, is that some of the players who maybe haven't performed well, are in the fringe of the squad, now have the opportunity to impress in training and try and sort of get their way into the squad whilst Amorim susses out who's playing well and who fits the system well. So yeah, it's going to be a very, very interesting few weeks for United, and well, a few months up until the January transfer window as well.
Yeah, it definitely will be. So we need to move on. So it's Onana, back three of Euro, De Ligt, Martinez. Give me a name at right wing back, Toby. Mazraoui or Dalot?
I'm going to go Dalot.
I think I'm just about going to go for Mazraoui. Left wing back, give me a name.
When all fit, let's go Luke Shaw. Let's get the redemption of Shaw.
I do want to see Garnacho further forward, but I think until he gets some transfers, I'm going to go Garnacho left wing back for now, because I think he will be a winger. Midfield 2, Ugarte and Mainu, yeah?
Yeah, got to be.
Yeah. Left attacking midfield, Bruno Fernandes, yeah?
Yep, Bruno on the left and Garnacho on the right for me.
You've got, okay, I'm going to go Diallo on the right. I do really like him. And up front, probably Højlund, yeah?
Yeah, it's got to be, at least to start.
Okay, so there we go. There's who we think Ruben Amorim will be starting with and who his best 11 is. Let us know in the comments below who you think. We have to move on though because we've got so much to talk about. And the game of the weekend, which probably didn't get as much attention as it deserved because of the fact that Man United did sack Ten Hag, and that's big news. And that's Liverpool versus Arsenal, when ended up in a 2-2 draw, or Arsenal versus Liverpool as I should say, as Arsenal were the home side. Toby, it was our two sides, your Arsenal versus my Liverpool. What did you make of it? Do you think a draw was a fair result?
Yeah, our two sides, and the first note I've just got written down in all caps at the top is tale of two halves. It really, really was. I think first half, Arsenal dominated the ball, created a good number of chances, XG of 0.77 compared to Liverpool's 0.36. And then the second half, it was the complete polar opposite. Liverpool with over 60% possession, XG of 0.45 to Arsenal's 0.15, 6 shots for Liverpool compared to Arsenal's 3. And I think that really summed it up. First half, I think after about 15 minutes, Arsenal really took control, really dominated the last sort of 20, 25 minutes of that game, and Liverpool barely had a sniff, had a good few chances. And then second half, Arsenal came out and wanted to sit back and just let Liverpool come at them. And that Liverpool did. It took Liverpool a little bit, I think, to get into their rhythm and really start to create chances, which I think Arsenal restricted fairly well in the first sort of 15, 20 minutes of that second half. But I think once Arsenal had almost decided that they're not really going to go and grab this game by the horns, it was just almost waiting for a Liverpool equaliser, it felt at times. So, yeah, funny game that I think could have gone completely differently, really, overall. How did you see it? Were you happy with the point, would you say, away at the Emirates as a Liverpool fan?
Yeah, of course, you're always happy with the point, especially away to your rivals. I always think get a point away from home and try and turn them over at home and try and get the 3 points against them. And so, yeah, I think regardless, I think it was a good. I think going into the game, I would have said, okay, go get out Arsenal. But after seeing how the game unfolded, I think you've got to be happy with the point. And I do have to say, I got a bit of stick on my match reaction in some of the comments, which I saw before we started recording, that I titled it "How a Weak Arsenal Almost Beat Liverpool." And I do have to say, though, I do still stand by it, and let me just explain it a little bit more, in the fact that obviously Arsenal were missing Saliba and Martin Odegaard, and a lot of the talk was, oh, Arsenal are weaker, you have to go in and capitalise, and they didn't end up being as weak as we thought they were going to be. But they still were missing Calafiori. He probably would have started at left back if not, if he was fit. And so that would have meant that Timber probably would have started right back. So really, that's probably 3 players that were missing for Arsenal. Plus the fact that during the game they lost Gabriel and Timber as well, who are part of their strongest 11. So at the end, that ends up being 5. So compared to Liverpool, who were only missing Alisson and Jota, and Szoboszlai wasn't starting, but that was a decision made by the manager, not something that was enforced on them. So I do stand by the fact that I do think it was a weaker Arsenal. Maybe I shouldn't have said it was a weak Arsenal, but yeah, a weaker Arsenal who obviously did need to have Bukayo Saka fit because, yeah, he is he doesn't play like he's a 23-year-old at times, and you can see why all the talk going into the game was about him and if he was going to be fit or not. But yeah, hopefully he stays fit for Arsenal's sake, because you do have some difficult fixtures coming up as well, but you do need him for.
Yeah, it was a huge plus seeing him start. I would have felt a lot less confident if he hadn't, and that's no disrespect to our other forward players in Trossard and Martinelli. I just think that's how much of an impact Saka has on this side and how good he is, and it just showed on that in that first goal. Just did so well, sat Robertson down, who maybe he's not had the best season, but is still one of the best sort of left backs in the league. Sat him down, finished it beautifully, and not only does he bring those moments, I think it's just the level of consistency that Saka brings through the whole game and how he brings other players in as well. Yeah, we really, really needed him to play, and he did. And I think without him, it would have been quite a different game. I think we would have seen us a lot more defensive from the off, not just in that second half, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do have to say on Robertson, because, yeah, the goal is completely his fault, but I wouldn't say, it's kind of over for Robertson. He's washed. I've seen a lot of people talking about him like the same way that maybe I've been talking about Kyle Walker and saying I think Kyle Walker's now done. one of the large reasons why I think Kyle Walker, now Man City, and maybe Pepper past Kyle Walker is because Rico Lewis is a fantastic substitute and someone who I think is deserving of maybe starting ahead of Kyle Walker, and maybe tactically it provides Pep Guardiola and Man City with a couple more options. I think with Robertson, even though Tsimikas came on in the game against Arsenal, did really well in that second half when he did come on for maybe 20, 15 minutes, I do still think though that Tsimikas isn't the first out-and-out left-back at Liverpool. I still think it's Robertson. And so I still think that Liverpool maybe need to buy a replacement for Tsimikas, and that person be someone who can compete with Robertson properly and for someone who can take his role. And so I still think that Robertson is Liverpool's first choice left-back, and I think it is premature because it was Arsenal, it was Chelsea, it was Saka, it was Madrid. These are two quality sides, two quality wingers. So I wouldn't say Andy Robertson is finished just yet. But I do think that it's signaling to Liverpool that, this is an area which they need to strengthen. And I think it's the defence as a whole is an area where Liverpool maybe have overlooked a little bit in the last few windows. So yeah, don't think this is the end for Robertson. And yeah, Saka obviously being world class is, yeah, very, very annoying. But I think from an English perspective, it's absolutely fantastic. So yeah, happy with the point, would you say?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I was just about to ask you as well. Like, in that first half, I think in the last 20 minutes of it, I was really impressed with how Arsenal played, and I was happy going to the half with how we played. Second half, obviously a different story. It was a completely different game. And the second half, it being Liverpool's. How did you think Liverpool played in that second half? They had a lot of the ball. Yeah, how do you think they played? It was a difficult one for me to judge. I just wanted your opinion, obviously, as a Liverpool fan.
I mean, I thought they played well in that second half. I do think it was aided by the fact that Arsenal did surrender initiative in the game, and that's actually a question I'll ask you, but I'll answer your question first. I did think Liverpool played well. I do think that Dominic Szoboszlai's got a lot of stick for maybe does all the defensive work but doesn't really produce the attacking output we need him for someone who's playing as the most advanced midfielder, maybe even in like a pseudo number 10 position. But I do think that we saw that, as soon as he comes on the pitch, he immediately gets on the ball, immediately starts making challenges. And, his role in the Liverpool equaliser for to make it 2-2, he's the one picking the ball up from the defence, driving with it a little bit, then passing to Trent before he makes the pass to Darwin Núñez. And so, yeah, I do think it was Szoboszlai coming into the side, Jones moving a little bit deeper because him not playing as a number 10 is different, and just standing in those positions is different to then playing as a deeper number 8 and then finding yourself and making a late midfield run. The role is slightly different, and I think that's where Curtis Jones excelled against Chelsea. So I will say that, yeah, I think Liverpool played well. I think we could have played better. Don't get me wrong. I think Thomas Partey just had like Luis Diaz and toast, and continuously frustrated me. Virgil van Dijk playing an aerial ball to Thomas Partey and just winning header after header, because it did seem like something that, get the ball to Luis Diaz, let him face up Thomas Partey and let him run at him. That's where you're going to get the most joy out of him. And Thomas Partey, if you're asking for one area in which Luis Diaz, he is superior at the right back position, it is headers, it is aerial. And I just thought it was so silly. And it's maybe something that Arsenal forced Liverpool into. But yeah, it was a tough game. I think it's a big game, it's tense, you go out there, you play well, but I don't think you will ever play as well as you do, as against some teams lower side. It's not going to be as free flowing. But do you think Arsenal did surrender initiative? Because I did feel like Liverpool grew into the game, but Arsenal were also sitting back, and that's actually been a criticism of Arsenal the last few games, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought and what I was trying to allude to by asking you that question, because it felt like I think Liverpool played well, but they didn't necessarily have to play amazing, I don't think. And it was frustrating to see us come out and not really try to keep the ball at all in the second half. I think we had some good counter-attacks, but there were times when we should have just kept the ball, kept control of the game, and something that we did really well last season was that control. And it just feels at the moment we're just, I think, an over-reliance on breaking, on counter-attacks, on really just sitting back, giving the other team the initiative. And that's something that's really disappointing, and something that I really don't want to see from a side who should be fighting for the title, especially at home as well. And it's not sure if it's just me being like a big pessimist, or it just felt like maybe this showing between two teams who should be the challengers to Manchester City, I think just made a few mistakes tactically. And I think Liverpool scoring their second goal from when Arsenal did decide to counter after sitting back not controlling that ball is where Liverpool got their luck, I think. When we sat back, we were okay. And I think with Liverpool, when you did have that ball, didn't really create too much until we started to come out a little bit. And it was just a strange game. And I think Manchester City watching that game were probably pretty happy, I think. And just, it wasn't an amazing showing, I think, at times from both sides. And I think both sides could have done better, especially with how they've been playing in other games this season.
Yeah, I do think this early on in the season, even though some people are saying, oh, if Arsenal lose this game, they're 7 points behind Liverpool, 6 behind Man City, are they out of the title race already? And I just think that sometimes early on in the season, it's okay to draw a game of football, because what Man City haven't done in the league, which they will do at some point, is lose a game of football. They've never gone invincible. They have lost games of football, regardless of how good they have been during the season. So I do think Man City are gettable. I think that without Rodri, they're more susceptible. I do think that defensively, they continuously concede goals. I mean, they have struggled to keep a clean sheet. I think the only clean sheet they kept was the first game of the season against Chelsea. So I do think Man City are gettable. I do think they will drop points. And yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with getting a draw against your title rivals. But I think there needs to be, for both the sides, they need to beat Man City and Arsenal in one of them. And I think from the Liverpool perspective, it's good because it's, we can bring them back to Anfield and beat them then. And I think from the Arsenal perspective, maybe you should have gone for it. You did have injuries. The way the game panned out, it's much of a muchness, really. I don't think it's the end of it for either side.
Yeah, and unfortunately in that game we didn't see a last minute winner, no injury time goal, after there were 5 injury time game changing goals this weekend, which is absolutely mental. Bowen for West Ham against United, Beto against Fulham for Everton, Cunha for Wolves against Brighton, and Buemo for Brentford against Ipswich, and Evan Nilsson for Bournemouth against Villa. Absolutely crazy stats.
Mate, I was so happy with Mbeumo getting that last minute goal, because he was my fantasy captain, got 15 points, captain him, got 30. It was absolutely over the moon. And then I saw the goal and I was just like, that is my FPL season as a whole. It was such a jammy goal. I mean, Muric is a fantastic shot stopper, and I think Ipswich have got a really good goalkeeper on their hands. But he does sometimes just make an odd decision. There was last season when he was playing for Burnley, I think it was against Brighton, where he just either miskicked it or just gave a goal or something. It was an own goal in the end. I don't know what it was, but it ended up being Brighton's goal of the month for that month, and they had only scored one goal, and it was Muric's own goal. He does have a bit of a stinker in him, and yeah, I think also the Bowen one, I don't think was a penalty. I think Man United can be very, very can be very, very disappointed with the fact that it was given, especially because it went to VAR. But I think there's something maybe to be said about Beto, Evan Nilsson and Cunha, because late goals, is it maybe poor management of the games from the other side? Because they're all of them were equalising goals, and I just think, maybe you just don't see teams go to the corner anymore nowadays, and maybe team managers are reluctant to maybe signal to the opposition and maybe their own players that, oh yeah, we're just going to take the result as it is now, because I do think it was some poor mismanagement. I think the Wolves one in particular, Matt Pfeiffer, I don't know if you saw it, I don't know what he was doing, but 4v1, Brighton should be scoring from there.
Yeah, and I think it's definitely a combination, isn't it, of the defending team and the attacking team in those last moments, because it feels so frequent in football that we do see last minute goals that changes games. And I think with football being such a narrow scored game, really looking at sort of 3-4 goals on average a game, when a team is 1 up or if they're holding on for a point, I think it just naturally comes to players and managers to just sit back and protect what you've got when you're thinking, oh, there's only 2-3 minutes left, let's sit back. And then the other team is doing the exact opposite, seeing them sitting back, having the ball, thinking, this is it, this is going to be our last attack, just throw everything at it. And I think it's just that combination of when those combine and you get those last minute winners. And as well with how often I think they've already happened in football and how often they happen in football, every team knows that they can score in the last second of the game to win it. So there's a massive psychological thing there as well. And yeah, for 5 for fall on the same weekend, is pretty crazy.
Yeah, but not 5 in injury time, but also 8 goals scored after the 85th minute as well. And if you think about that Brighton Wolves game, I think there was 3 after the 85th minute as well. So yeah, so many late goals. And yeah, I do think there's something in it about teams now going, do you know what, we're just going to throw the kitchen sink because, yeah, there is something there. The last season there was more late goals, I think, than any other Premier League season ever. This is, I mean, the last game week or so was 5 in injury time, 8 in after the 85th minute. There is something in the late goals, and something is changing. Just can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is. Maybe its teams are being a bit more attacking. Maybe the defending is not as good as it was. But yeah, maybe 5 substitutes has a role to play in it as well. It's it. Can you really put your finger on it? Because I can't.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I actually was looking up an article over in The Athletic, which was about injury time winners and sort of the frequency that they happen over various seasons. And there has been a big increase since the early 90s. It was only 20 to 30 goals a season were scored in the 90th minute or later, whereas now we're sort of looking at 60 to 70 on average. There was a peak of 85 in the 21-22 season as well. That was a big standout. And they were looking specifically as well at the champions and how many points they get from 90-minute or later goals, essentially, whether it's a late draw or a late win. And in the 3 seasons that City won the league in 2020 through to 2023, so those 3 seasons where they won the league, in the first one they didn't get any points from late winners or equalisers, and the 2 seasons after that they only got 2. And I think in terms of champions, the numbers are way, way lower. Obviously, they're having more control on the games. They're not having to get these late goals because they're already winning the games a lot of the time. But even then, for City in 22-23, those 2 points, they could have made all the difference. And last season, I'm pretty sure it was the same as well, where I think they had 2 goals from late, 2 points rather from late winners, and that was enough for them to win the league over Arsenal. So even those fine margins and having just 1 late winner, despite the fact that we do see them a lot throughout the season, can change the season for any team.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, all the sides who did get the winners or equalisers will be very grateful for. And the other ones, I just have to go back to Brighton Wolves. I think if you're Fabian Hurlitzer, you are absolutely ripping your hair out at the fact that you probably should win that game 3-1. You end up drawing it 2-2. I mean, I think Brighton are a really good side. They'll be absolutely fine. But imagine if that point for Wolves and Gary O'Neill is absolutely massive because he's a manager on the chopping block. And yeah, if he didn't get that point, then, the next couple of games I think are winnable against sides in and around it. So that will probably relieve a lot of pressure on them. And yeah, late goals are so important. But should we move on to the quiz?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in one little fact, just right at the end.
Go on.
Do you know the team who has conceded the most 90-plus minute winners?
In the Premier League, yeah?
In the Premier League.
Trying to think through the team. Let's go for Crystal Palace.
I was going to say there's an obvious answer given who I support.
Is it Arsenal?
No, it's Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh. I was like, Arsenal? What? Okay, Spurs, well, their defence hasn't been...
Yeah.
Their defence has been great this season, but it has been good at other times. They're another one where they're also an incredibly confusing side, and I'm sure we'll talk about them at some point. But yeah, the quiz, which is going to be just a very quick guess the club based on the 5 players that we give each other. The more points you get for the early on you get it, so 5 if you get it straight away, and 1 if you get it on the 5th guess, and 0 if you don't get it whatsoever. So play along at home as well. Toby, would you like to go first or would you like to go second?
I want to go first this week, actually.
Yeah, go on. You can go first, as in guessing.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, your first player for 5 points is Yannick Bolasie.
Oh, Yannick Bolasie. Okay. I know a few of his teams. Palace, Everton, Bristol City, Plymouth. I don't think it's going to be Everton or Palace for the first player. It's a little obvious. Where else has he been? Is he at QPR, maybe? Let's go for Bristol City.
It is not Bristol City. That is your first one I've got. So, your second player for 4 points is Pablo Sarabia.
Ooh. So he's done Wolves, PSG. I'm pretty sure Sarabia was at Sporting. And I have a feeling Balassi was as well. And that would be very, very on topic, Mev, if you went for Sporting. So I'm going to go for Sporting.
Oh, I've made it far too easy, haven't I? Yep, it is Sporting.
We'll take a 4-pointer. That's very nice. Who are the other players?
I was trying to be topical. That was silly of me. Third one would have been Island Slimani.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I definitely would have got on that.
Yeah, fourth would have been Rafael Leao. And fifth would have been Eric Dyer. So
Leao would have actually thrown me off completely. No idea he played at Sporting.
Yeah, started his career at Sporting, started with the B side, then the A side, then obviously before he went to Lille and then AC Milan. But I thought, he's Portuguese, so you probably would have got that.
Yeah. Okay. Are you ready for yours?
Damn.
It's a bit more difficult. I feel bad now.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I'm ready. Go for it.
Okay. Your first player for 5 points is John Guidetti.
John Guidetti. Right. Oh my god. This is gonna go badly. I can tell. I might just edit out the whole quiz section. The Swede, right?
Yes. Yeah. Swedish striker.
Yeah. The only club I can think of from the top of my head is Man City. So I'm just gonna say Man City.
It is not Man City, unfortunately.
Okay.
Your second player for 4 points, conveniently, is Shay Given.
Okay, Shay Given. Where would he and John Guidetti have played at? I'm hoping English. Yeah, it's got to be an English team. Shay Given. Couple of sides: Villa, Blackburn, Man City as well. Thankfully. Let's go for Aston Villa.
It is not Aston Villa, unfortunately, mate.
Okay.
Your third player for 3 points is the GOAT, Wilfred Bonney.
Wilfred Bonney. So I've said Man City. He was at Swansea. Shay Given wasn't at Swansea. Oh dear. Okay, so where did Wilfred... Ivory Coast International, started at Man City. No, started at Swansea, went to Man City. Where was he before Swansea? Where was he after Man City? Into oblivion, clearly, because I don't remember. I've got no idea. I genuinely have no idea. I'm going to just have to pass on this one, mate.
Oh, okay. I think you'll get it on this one. Your fourth player for 2 points is Victor Moses.
Victor Moses, not Liverpool, not... Oh. So immediately, I went to Stoke, but... Victor Moses was Wigan, Chelsea, Liverpool on loan. Pretty sure he went to Stoke. That was my gut instinct. He went to Inter. The others have not gone to Inter Milan. Also somewhere in Turkey. I'm going to say Stoke.
And you've got it for 2 points. Very nice, mate.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
that was bad.
John Guidetti and Wilfred Bonney had season-long loans there. Shay Given, I think, had a couple of seasons there right at the end of his career. It was his last club. Yep, Victor Moses, as you said. I think he might be in another loan there, actually. Not too sure. It felt like he was there for a while, though, but I can't remember. And your last player would have been Jurgen Shaqiri.
Yeah, Shaqiri, what is it? Basel, Inter Milan, Liverpool. What did he go after Liverpool? I've no idea where he went after Liverpool.
I think he might have ended up in the French league, maybe at Lyon or something. Can't remember though.
Doesn't really feel like a Lyon player, does he?
I think
he might have gone to the MLS.
He was in the MLS as well. Yeah, I think he might be there now. At Chicago, maybe. Not sure.
Yeah, Chicago Fire. Yeah. Well, there we go. You win this week's. That was appalling by me. I might just edit that out, but I might just leave it in for shits and giggles. But there we go. That is this new type of format on the channel. If you made it to the end of it, let us know what you think. Do you like it? Do you want to see more of me and Toby talking together? We're going to do a couple more, see how it goes, see if you guys like it. So if you do like it, let us know. If you don't like it, let us know what you want to improve, and we'll change it for next time, and we appreciate your feedback. But for now, thanks for everyone watching. See you next week.